The hall of the Grand Science Forum stretched for miles, its crystal walls shimmering with reflected starlight from every corner of the galaxy. Thousands of alien minds filled the chamber, each one brilliant, each one proud, each one certain that they understood how the universe worked. They spoke in equations and photons, in theory so complex that light itself seemed too slow to listen. And above them the banners of the Galactic Union shimmered with the glow of 1,000,000 civilizations united under the same belief. That knowledge was theirs alone to command. At the center of that ocean of intellect stood a single human, small compared to the towering forms around him, his black coat simple, his hands trembling slightly as he set a thin metal case upon the podium. His name was Dr. Elias Grant of Earth. Around him, whispers rippled like static, for no human had spoken in that chamber in more than a century. Humanity had fallen silent long ago, retreating behind its quiet blue star, ignored and forgotten by the greater galaxy. And yet here he was, one man against the weight of 1,000 empires. When the council moderator announced his presentation, the lights dimmed and the holographic display unfolded in the air. Maps of dying stars, collapsing nebulae, strange gravitational distortions recorded by Terran probes. My research, Elias began, his voice calm, proves that stars can be made to die before their time. The room fell quiet for only a moment before laughter burst like thunder. A Varnian mathematician cackled, "Die before their time? What is time to a star, human?" Others joined in. "You think your primitive telescopes can read the will of suns? You think you can kill light?" Their laughter grew louder, sharper, crueler, but Elias didn't flinch. He let them laugh, his eyes steady, his tone even. "Not kill," he said softly. "Interfere." He tapped a sequence on the table and the hologram changed to show data from Sol Sector archives, light signatures that pulsed with impossible symmetry, the fingerprint of artificial influence. "Someone once did this," he said. "We found the traces. They match human research from the 23rd century. Experiments in controlled stellar collapse." The hall went silent, but only for a moment before the mockery returned. Louder, sharper. "Fairy tales," shouted a Drakkar physicist. "You think your species could do what the elders failed?" The moderator sighed. "Dr. Grant, these claims border on myth. The Council Science Code forbids speculation on star-class manipulation." "It's not speculation," Elias said quietly. "It's warning." The Avarian leaned forward, feathers rustling. "And what do you warn us of, little human?" Elias looked up at the vast ceiling where thousands of lights shone like miniature stars. "That if we keep disturbing the fabric of energy for greed and war," he said, "the stars will answer." The laughter came again, but this time it was nervous. The council recorded his words for official review, but his request for further study was denied within minutes. As he gathered his notes, he heard one of the alien scientists whisper, "Humans always bring doom to the table. That's why we stopped listening to them." Elias only smiled faintly and said to himself, "You'll listen soon enough." When he returned to his shuttle, the cold void of space greeted him with the silence only humans had ever learned to respect. The small vessel left the station without ceremony, gliding past the massive cruisers that gleamed like jewels. Inside, Elias removed a small chip from his pocket, an artifact older than the Union itself. It glowed faintly with a red pulse, the code of Helios Prime. He whispered to it, "Wake up." Somewhere far away, beneath the red dust of Mars, deep tunnels came alive for the first time in 200 years. Lights flickered, machines began to hum, and a long-forgotten system booted with a sound like thunder buried under stone. The ancient network had one name in human archives, the Solar Crown, a network designed to study stellar manipulation, decommissioned after the Great Silence of 2429. Humanity had buried it when the Council banned their research, but humanity never destroys its tools. It hides them. Meanwhile, news of the humans' ridiculous claims spread across the galaxy like wildfire. Talk shows mocked Earth's arrogance. Scientists wrote entire papers ridiculing the death of stars theory. And alien comedians used it in jokes. "Careful. Don't offend the humans or they'll turn off your sun." The audience laughed, the council chuckled, and even the Union's media ran headlines like "Terran Madness Returns." No one knew that deep beneath the sands of Mars, humanity's greatest forbidden machine was stirring again, each pulse syncing with the heartbeat of Sol itself. On Earth, night fell quietly over the oceans. But the stars seemed brighter, almost too bright. In the old research facility near the Andes, a small group of scientists watched the sky. "He did it," whispered Dr. Amara Keene, Elias's closest partner. He told them. The others shook their heads. They'll never believe him. Amara smiled faintly. They don't have to. She turned to the console where a hidden signal blinked. A code older than any satellite still in orbit. HelioNet 01 online. The computers began calculating impossible numbers, energy readings no system could explain. Across the base, the air grew warm, the lights dimmed, and the sound of the earth itself seemed to hum, deep and slow, like a heartbeat echoing through stone. Far away, in the outer systems, the first anomaly appeared. The star Vathra 22 flickered. Astronomers dismissed it as sensor error, but when the readings persisted, they began to argue. "It's gravitational distortion," said one. "No, it's solar fluctuation," said another. Yet none could explain why the light from the star began to fold inward, disappearing faster than physics allowed. Within hours, the blue giant dimmed to nothing. No supernova, no explosion, just absence. Ships orbiting it reported sudden power failure before vanishing from sensors entirely. The next morning, the Galactic News Service broadcast a headline: "Star Collapse Mystery, Science Divided." Only one person didn't appear surprised. Elias Grant, watching from his small ship, whispered, "That's one." On Mars, the solar crown systems detected the event and adjusted automatically. HFY Protocol Phase 1 confirmed. Thousands of dormant satellites hidden around Sol's orbit came online, linked through quantum relays that hadn't transmitted in generations. Their signal formed a perfect harmonic pattern, invisible to alien instruments but clear to human ones, a wave resonating across interstellar space. In the lab beneath Mars, Dr. Amara watched the readings spike. "He started the change," she said. Her assistant looked frightened. "Should we stop it?" Amara turned toward the holographic map of the galaxy, where one star blinked out. "No," she said softly. "This is the proof they demanded. Now they'll see what science really means." The next day, the Council's observatories confirmed it. Vathra 22 was gone. Not collapsed, not destroyed, simply erased from the spectrum. The panic began quietly. The laughter stopped. But pride dies slower than fear. The Council released an official statement calling the event a natural occurrence. "Stars die all the time," they said. "This is coincidence." But Drakkar warlords whispered in their chambers, and the Avarian elders sent secret messages to their astronomers. Every species had the same question: what if the human was right? Back in his small ship, Elias Grant looked at the empty void where Vathra 22 used to burn. He felt no joy, no triumph, only a strange sadness. "They needed a demonstration," he murmured. "But they'll mistake it for a weapon." He activated a secure line to Mars. "Phase 2 in 72 hours, he said. "Keep it stable." The reply came through static, Amara's voice faint but steady. "Understood, Doctor. The stars will listen." He closed the channel and stared at the stars, each one a memory, each one a secret. He remembered the day his ancestors stood on a dying Earth, mocked for their warnings, ignored for their knowledge, and he thought, maybe it's time the galaxy learned that science isn't laughter, it's consequence. On the third day, the reports multiplied. A second star gone, then a third. A pattern began to form. The Council called it cosmic coincidence. Humans called it inevitability. And somewhere under the red dust of Mars, a hum grew louder as Project Helios prepared for the next pulse. Elias Grant stood before the control panel, his reflection glowing in the glass. "They called it myth," he said softly. "Now they'll call it history." It began quietly, almost too quietly, the kind of stillness that makes stars themselves seem nervous, as if the universe was holding its breath, waiting for something to happen, and when it did, no one was ready for it. Not the scientists, not the soldiers, not even the machines built to watch the heavens. The first star to die was named Vathra 22, a blue giant that had burned for billions of years, visible from 50 colonies and worshipped by 6 different alien religions. It had been the center of trade, culture, and navigation for entire civilizations. But on the 4th day after Dr. Elias Grant's speech, the light from Vathra 22 flickered once, dimmed, and was gone. No explosion, no flare, no trace of radiation. It didn't fade away. It simply ceased to exist, as though someone had turned off a lamp in a cosmic room. The colonies orbiting its dead system screamed for help. their transmissions breaking into static as their ships lost orientation without the light to guide them. Power grids failed, crops died, and chaos spread through the darkness. The news reached the Galactic Council within hours. They didn't believe it. Stars do not just vanish. At first, the scientists blamed sensor malfunction, claiming that the star's data streams had glitched. The Council sent fleets of probes to confirm, and when they arrived, they found nothing. No heat, no gravity well, no remnants of matter. Space itself looked smooth, as if something had wiped it clean. The shock turned into fear when the first alien fleet that entered the region vanished too. Their last transmission filled with static and a single terrified voice whispering, "There's nothing here." The Council silenced the broadcast, afraid of spreading panic, but fear spreads faster than light. Within 2 days, hundreds of systems began searching their own skies, watching their suns with unease, waiting to see which one would blink next. On Mars, beneath kilometers of red dust and iron rock, the solar crown came alive again, every node syncing to the beat of an invisible signal. The tunnels glowed with blue light, machines awakening from a slumber older than the current galactic age. Dr. Amara Keene stood before the core terminal, her hands trembling slightly as the reading spiked higher than any theoretical limit. "The interference wave has reached Orion Arm," said one of her assistants, his voice tight. "Gravitational harmonics are reacting exactly as predicted." Amara's eyes reflected the holographic display showing the map of a galaxy, slowly dimming, one point of light at a time. "And the Council?" she asked quietly. "Still laughing," he said bitterly. Amara smiled faintly. "Then they don't understand what's coming." Meanwhile, across the Union's core worlds, the mood shifted from amusement to denial. The same scientists who had mocked Elias now wrote long, panicked reports filled with half-explanations and equations that broke under scrutiny. "It could be a dimensional fold," one claimed. "No," said another. "It's a black hole forming unnaturally fast." None of them dared to suggest what they all secretly feared, that someone was doing it on purpose. The Union High Broadcast Network ran emergency discussions with experts debating the impossible. "Stars cannot be killed," said a Drakkar physicist, his voice breaking. "Not even by gods." But the next morning another one vanished. Then another. By the end of the week, 7 were gone. The laughter stopped completely. In the dark corridors of Sol Command, the human military watched from a silent war room deep under the Atlantic. There were no celebrations, no cheers, only quiet nods and the soft hum of computers. General Ava Richter stood before the main holomap, watching the spreading voids where light used to be. "They're beginning to notice," she said. An officer beside her asked, "Do we confirm involvement?" She turned to him, her expression unreadable. "No," she said. "We confirm patience. The galaxy never listened when we spoke. Maybe it will listen when its suns go silent." The officer hesitated, then whispered, "And the civilians, ma'am?" "They'll never know," she said. "Let them believe the universe is correcting itself. That's easier than the truth." Back on the alien worlds, panic began to bloom. Trade routes failed as navigation systems malfunctioned in regions where starlight once guided ships. Entire colonies dependent on solar energy went dark overnight. The governments tried to hide the scale of collapse, but videos leaked. Ships floating powerless in void, planets shrouded in perpetual twilight, people staring at empty skies. Religious movements began preaching that the end of light was divine punishment. Scientists whispered that something intelligent was behind it, something vast enough to erase stars like sparks underwater. And somewhere in the shadows of all those conversations, one name kept appearing: human. The Galactic Council held an emergency session, the first of its kind in centuries. The chamber was tense, the air filled with static as hundreds of delegates shouted over each other. "This is a natural collapse," yelled the Avarian physicist who had mocked Elias. "Coincidence?" The Drakkar slammed his clawed hand onto the table. "Coincidence does not erase suns, featherborn fool," he roared. "We told you the humans were dangerous. Their silence means guilt." The moderator tried to restore order, his voice shaking. "There is no proof of human involvement. Earth has made no contact." "Exactly," hissed another voice. "That's what makes it worse." While the council screamed and accused, humanity stayed silent. No signals, no messages, no public statements. To the galaxy it looked like indifference. But under the surface, deep within Sol's system, something was building. The old orbital arrays around Earth flickered online for the first time in centuries, their lights invisible to alien sensors, their frequencies buried in cosmic noise. Humanity didn't need to explain itself. The data alone spoke for them. Every star that vanished had once been the site of human ridicule, betrayal, or exploitation. The pattern wasn't random. It was surgical. It was judgment written in astronomy. Dr. Elias Grant sat alone in his ship orbiting Mars, staring at the holographic display that tracked the pattern of vanishing light. His face was calm, almost mournful. "I never wanted this," he whispered to himself. But they forced it. He pressed a button on the console, opening a communication channel to the hidden Mars base. "Phase 2 ready?" Amara's voice came through, low and steady. "The calculations are stable. The system can handle another 3 collapses before it needs recalibration." "Good," Elias said. "Make it clean. Make it obvious. They need to understand it's not chaos. It's design." "And if they still don't?" Amara asked. He paused. "Then we'll remind them where the light comes from." On the 5th day, the biggest star yet vanished. Trilmar 5, the anchor of a trade network that stretched across 2 spiral arms. It disappeared mid-transmission, its light blinking out while thousands watched in real time. The reaction was instant. Civilizations fell into panic. Fleets scrambled to evacuate colonies. The Council declared a state of emergency, urging calm while sending warships toward Sol. But the human defense grid was ready. No alien ship made it past the outer edge of the solar system. They simply vanished into static, their signals cut off as if they'd flown into a void. Rumors spread that Earth had developed an invisible wall of energy, an ancient weapon capable of bending light itself. Some whispered that humanity had reached the final stage of evolution, not biological or mechanical, but cosmic. In the Senate Hall, the Avarian physicist who once mocked Elias stood trembling before the Council. His feathers wilted. "We've run every test, every scan," he said, his voice hollow. "The pattern of vanishing stars matches the harmonic frequency of human energy fields from their ancient archives. It's them. It's always been them." Silence followed. Then the Drakkar warlord leaned forward, his voice low. "Then we've awakened something that should have stayed asleep." Across the galaxy, the stars flickered again. This time the flicker wasn't random. It pulsed in sequence, a pattern too deliberate to be natural. For 3 long minutes, the entire galaxy blinked in unison, like a heartbeat rippling through the void. Then it stopped. The scientists couldn't explain it. The soldiers couldn't fight it. The priests couldn't pray it away, and in the quiet of his ship, Elias Grant closed his eyes and whispered the words that would one day echo in every history book written after this moment. "They laughed at human science," he said softly. "But they forgot one thing. Science doesn't need belief. It only needs time." Outside his window, Mars glowed red beneath the black sky. In the distance, far beyond the reach of any alien eye, the stars began to move. Beneath the red wastelands of Mars, buried deeper than any map dared to show, a chamber older than the current galactic union pulsed with light. The walls were smooth metal, untouched by time, covered in human symbols that no alien had ever seen. Each one glowed faintly as the dormant systems came alive for the first time in centuries. The air shimmered with energy that felt alive, whispering in frequencies only machines could understand. At the center of the chamber stood a towering black sphere, cold, silent, waiting. This was Project Helios, humanity's greatest and most forbidden creation, the weapon that was never meant to exist again. It was not built to destroy planets, not even stars. It was designed to control the very law that kept the universe alive, light itself. And now it was awake. Dr. Amara Keene stood before it, the reflection of its surface rippling across her face. Her heart pounded in rhythm with the deep hum echoing through the base. "Initialize neural core," she whispered. The AI's voice, deep and steady, filled the chamber. "Core link established. Solar field integrity, stable. Awaiting authorization." Amara hesitated, her finger hovering above the console. She thought of Elias, alone out there among the stars, waiting for confirmation that their long-buried sin still worked. "Authorization Keene Delta 7, she said finally. The black sphere pulsed once, and for a moment the whole base trembled. The lights dimmed, the screens flickered, and then a single line of text appeared. Heliophase 2. Engaged, outside. On the surface of Mars, the dust began to rise into the thin air, caught in invisible currents of energy. The old communication towers that had been dead for centuries started to glow faintly, sending invisible waves across the void toward Earth and beyond. The solar system itself seemed to vibrate. Jupiter's storms flared brighter. The rings of Saturn shimmered with unnatural color. Humanity's machines, hidden under oceans, buried beneath moons, and sleeping inside asteroids, all began to stir. The solar crown network had awakened. Every node connected to Helios now pulsed in unison, sending signals through subspace that no alien scanner could read. To outsiders, Sul still looked quiet. To those who could feel it, it was alive again, breathing like a giant that had been sleeping too long. Meanwhile, across the galaxy, alien scientists were losing their minds. The Galactic Observatory on Yenthar Prime released data that made no sense. The disappearances are not natural collapses, said Chief Astronomer Vadran. The gravitational fields fluctuate before vanishing, as if something is folding space around them. No known technology can do that. The Council demanded explanations. They got none. When one researcher suggested that this was human technology, she was laughed out of the chamber, until the same night when the star nearest her homeworld flickered. The laughter died instantly. On Earth, deep under the old Andes facility, the control center buzzed with activity, screens filled with numbers and gravitational models. "We've confirmed the link between the solar crown and Helios," said one technician. "It's stable," another replied. "Stable isn't the word I'd use. It's bending spacetime in measurable increments." Dr. Keene stood in the middle of the chaos, calm as ever. "That's what it was designed to do," she said softly. "To prove that the constants of physics were never constant. They were negotiable." She turned toward the main holographic display where a map of the galaxy showed black voids where stars used to shine. "And now we're negotiating." The AI's voice returned, colder this time. "Human directive detected. Historical authorization confirmed. Do you wish to continue, Dr. Keene?" She stared at the screen, her reflection merging with the hologram of dead stars. "Yes," she said quietly. "But make them watch." The AI replied. "Transmission pathway selected. Open relay through Orion subgrid." "Do it," she said. Across the galaxy, hidden satellites once thought to be debris suddenly activated, aligning like mirrors. Beams of invisible data linked them together, forming a pattern around the galactic rim. The Council noticed too late. "What are those signals?" shouted one alien commander in panic. "They're not weapons, they're coordinates." But it was already done. In the span of seconds, entire sectors began to experience gravitational distortions. Space bent like liquid, the stars around them flickering as if someone was adjusting the brightness of reality itself. Observatories malfunctioned, navigation systems failed, ships lost orientation. On one alien moon, an astronomer looked up and saw the sky twist into a spiral of light before collapsing into darkness. "They're rearranging the sky," he whispered, his voice breaking. "Someone is rearranging the stars." On Mars, Amara Keene watched the readings climb higher and higher. "Output levels at 95%, said her assistant. "We can't hold it for long." "We don't need long," she said. "Just enough for them to understand." In her mind, she could almost hear Elias's voice from the old days, explaining the dream behind Project Helios. It was never about destruction, he had said. It was about proof. Proof that humanity could reach the core of creation and touch it without fear. Now that dream had become reality, and reality itself trembled under its weight. The Galactic Council called another emergency meeting. The chamber was chaos. "We're under attack," screamed the Avarian minister. "But by what?" shouted the Drakkar general. "No one has fired a shot." "Then how are our stars dying?" "They're not dying," said a small voice. It was an old Zeth scholar who had studied human history for decades. "They're being rewritten." The chamber fell silent. "Rewritten by what?" someone whispered. The old scholar looked up with haunted eyes. "By the same species we laughed at. The same minds we called primitive. The same ones who said they could talk to stars." Elias Grant sat aboard his small ship, watching the distant void through reinforced glass. He had no expression, no hint of pride or anger. Just quiet focus. "Helios Phase 2 complete," came Amara's voice through the comms. "The alignment is visible now. They'll see it." "Good," Elias replied. "They need to see the pattern before the message." "And what happens after that?" she asked. "We go silent," he said. Always silence after light. On the Council's main observation platform, the screens filled with live feeds from across the galaxy. One by one, the stars that had vanished began to reappear, but not where they belonged. They had been moved, relocated across the void, forming strange geometric shapes that stretched for light years. "What is that?" gasped one of the scientists. "It's too symmetrical to be natural." "It's a map," said another. But of what? None of them realized what they were seeing until a holographic overlay compared the new pattern to ancient human DNA. It matched perfectly. The room fell utterly silent. The same pattern of life itself, the same double helix that defined humanity, now glowed across the night sky, carved from real stars. Dr. Amara stood in awe as the reading stabilized. "He did it," she whispered. "He actually did it." The AI spoke softly. "Pattern complete. Awaiting next directive." "There isn't one," she said. "That's the message." Across the galaxy, as species stared at the night sky, fear and awe turned into something else. Realization. Humanity hadn't destroyed their stars. They had rearranged them into a message written in light itself. Every child who looked up would see it for generations. The Council demanded a response from Earth, but no signal came. The humans remained silent, their science doing the talking. For the first time in history, the galaxy understood that knowledge could be more terrifying than war. And as the last star settled into its new place, Elias Grant looked out from his ship, the soft glow of the Helios array reflecting in his eyes. "They said science was just curiosity," he whispered. "They forgot it's also creation." He leaned back, closing his eyes as the hum of the ship faded into quiet. Let them remember who taught them to look up. The Council chamber was never meant to feel fear. It was a place built for power, arrogance, and debate. A vast circular hall floating above the clouds of Varel Prime, where empires decided the fate of lesser worlds. But on that day, the hall was trembling. Its light dimmed to an anxious blue as hundreds of delegates shouted across the room, voices overlapping like thunder. The massive holographic map of the galaxy flickered above them, stars blinking in and out as the pattern of vanishing light spread across the spiral arms. "This cannot be random," shouted the Avarian physicist, feathers ruffled panic in his eyes. "It's a directed event." "Directed by whom?" hissed the Drakkar warlord, his scaled hands clenched into fists. "Who has the power to move suns?" "No one," someone shouted back. Not even the ancient civilizations of the core worlds could do this. But deep down, they all knew what name they feared to say. Earth. The moderator slammed his gavel for silence, but no one listened. The sound was swallowed by chaos. "We demand answers," cried the Threxian delegate. "If humanity is behind this, we must strike now before they collapse the core." The hall erupted again, but amid the shouting, an old voice rose, a quiet, trembling voice that froze everyone in place. It was High Scholar Tavan, one of the last surviving witnesses of the first human contact war centuries ago. "Strike?" he said softly. "You wish to strike the species that can erase stars without firing a weapon?" His voice carried the weight of memory. "I saw them once, long ago, before they went silent. I saw the look in their eyes when the Council forced them to abandon their science. They weren't defeated. They were waiting." His words hit like gravity, pulling the air out of the room. The moderator tried to recover. "We cannot act based on superstition," he said sharply. "There is no proof humanity is responsible." A dozen voices snapped back. "Then how do you explain this pattern?" One shouted. "Why do all vanished stars link to human research sectors? Why do their old satellites still respond to quantum pings when ours fail? Why haven't they denied it?" The last question silenced them all. Humanity had not said a single word since the first star died. No denial, no response, no warning, just silence, and somehow that silence was worse than any threat. On the outer balcony of the chamber, the Varnian science envoy stared at the stars through the transparent wall, his eyes wide as the sky above flickered again. "It's happening again," he whispered. The room darkened as a faint hum rolled through the floor, so low it felt more like a heartbeat than a sound. The holographic map blinked once, twice, then 3 more stars vanished in sequence, each one within the sectors closest to the Council worlds. "They're getting closer," someone gasped. "How are they choosing targets?" "They're not choosing," muttered the Drakkar warlord. "They're teaching." In the communication towers orbiting the Council's capital, Alarms blared as gravitational readings spiked off the charts. The technicians screamed as instruments failed one after another, unable to process the data. "It's coming from the direction of Seoul," said one trembling operator. "The signal's clean, encoded, and old. Thousands of years old." "That's impossible," his commander barked. "Decode it anyway." They did. It was a single repeating transmission in an ancient Terran binary language. Heliopulse calibration sequence active. No weapon signatures. No ships, no threats, just data. Flowing calmly into every corner of the galaxy. Unstoppable. Back inside the council chamber, panic had become hysteria. Some delegates demanded immediate war. Others begged for negotiation. A few simply sat in stunned silence, realizing that no choice mattered anymore. The Avarian Prime Minister tried to speak over the uproar, his voice cracking. "We can't fight what we don't understand," he shouted. "If they have this kind of control, if they can move stars, then our fleets are useless." The Drakkar slammed his clawed fist against the table hard enough to crack it. "Then what do you propose? That we kneel?" The Prime Minister's eyes darted to the hologram, where the spiral of missing stars was slowly taking shape. His feathers trembled. "I think we already have." At that moment, the chamber lights dimmed completely. The hologram turned black, then white lines began to draw themselves across it. Lines connecting the vanished stars. The council froze, watching in horror as the lines curved and intertwined into a recognizable form. It was a double helix. The room filled with gasps. That's impossible," whispered one scientist. "It's the human DNA sequence." The words fell like a death sentence. "They're signing their work," said the old scholar Tavon quietly. "They're not hiding. They're showing us." The Drakkar warlord turned to the council with wild fury. "If we don't act now, there will be no stars left to rule." The moderator, pale and shaking, whispered, "And if we act, there may be no stars left at all." For the first time in history, the Council of 1,000 Worlds felt powerless. Empires that had once commanded the galaxy were now small children staring at a fire they couldn't understand. "We must open communication," someone pleaded. "We must reach out to Earth." "How?" said another. Every attempt to enter soul space vanishes. Out beyond the Council's homeworld, their fleets hovered nervously near the borders of human territory. The admirals waited for orders, their ships armed and ready but blind to what they faced. One captain stared at the black void ahead of him and whispered, "We're staring at the end of light." Then, without warning, their radar screens filled with distortion. Dozens of unidentified objects appeared at the edge of detection, massive, cold, and silent. "Contacts," someone screamed. "How many?" I don't know. They're not showing heat signatures. They're just shadows." Then the shadows moved. One by one, the alien warships flickered and disappeared. No explosions, no wrecks, nothing left behind but empty space. The council never heard from that fleet again. Inside the chamber, news arrived seconds later. "We've lost contact with the Orion defense line," shouted a messenger. "No wreckage, no survivors." The Avarian physicist broke down, clutching his head. "We mocked them," he whispered, voice cracking. "We mocked the species that learned how to command light itself." The moderator slumped in his chair, staring blankly at the hologram that now glowed with the full human DNA spiral stretching across the galaxy. "We treated their silence as weakness," he said faintly. But maybe silence was the only warning they gave us. For the first time, no one argued. The chamber was completely still. Outside, the stars burned quietly, as if listening. Then from somewhere deep within the communication network, a new signal appeared. Short, faint, but clear. Every screen in the chamber flickered to show a single line of text: "Do not mock what you do not understand." The message repeated 3 times, then vanished. The chamber lights flickered back on. No one spoke. No one moved. In the silence that followed, entire civilizations felt smaller than ever before. Back on Mars, Dr. Amara Keene watched the chaos unfold through intercepted feeds. Her assistants were pale with awe and fear. "They know it's us," one said. "They finally know." Amara turned toward the dark core of Project Helios, its surface swirling with faint light. "Good," she said. "Now they'll stop pretending they're gods." She opened a secure channel. "Elias, they've seen it." His voice came through calm, distant, resolute. "Then our work is done." He paused, looking out at the stars that now formed humanity's mark upon the universe. Let them understand what silence can build. For 3 weeks, the galaxy had burned with questions, panic spreading like wildfire through every system that still had light. Every race demanded an answer. Every fleet searched for a target, and every leader prayed that this nightmare had an explanation. But Earth remained silent. Not a single transmission, not a word from Sul. Just the endless hum of the stars that had not yet vanished. It was a silence that screamed louder than any declaration of war. Then one day, every screen in the galaxy flickered at once. The static settled into a single image. An old human flag waving slowly against a black background. No signal code, no encryption. Just simplicity. A man stepped into view, his face calm, lined with exhaustion. Dr. Elias Grant. He was standing inside a dark room, lit only by the faint blue glow of instruments around him. Behind him, the faint hum of Project Helios echoed like the heartbeat of a machine older than the Council itself. He didn't shout. He didn't look angry. He didn't even look proud. He looked like someone who had already seen the end and accepted it. When he spoke, his voice carried across every screen in every language, soft but undeniable. You wanted answers, he said. So listen. The chamber of the Galactic Council fell into silence as the message reached them. You called us primitive, Elias began, his tone calm, steady, heavy. You called our science superstition, our curiosity madness, our silence weakness. You laughed when we tried to warn you that the universe isn't something you own. You mocked us when we spoke of limits because your arrogance told you you could control creation itself. You were wrong. His eyes lifted slightly, the faint reflection of stars glimmering within them. You think we are killing your sons, he continued. But we are not. We are showing you what happens when you take without understanding. His hand rose to a control panel, and behind him, the hologram of the galaxy appeared, spinning slowly. Dozens of dark holes marked the places where stars used to be. Each of these, he said, is a lesson written in light. You thought power was ownership. We thought it was understanding. Now you're learning which one survives. Across thousands of worlds, citizens gathered around screens in complete silence. No one dared speak. No one even moved. The voice of a single human filled the stars. The Helios network was created centuries ago before your council existed. Its purpose was not destruction. It was preservation. We built it to stabilize energy, to protect dying systems from collapse. But when we asked for cooperation, you laughed. When we warned that tampering with fusion patterns could destroy entire sectors, you called it fear. And when we refused to share what we discovered, you branded us dangerous. So we buried it. We buried everything, including our trust in you. He leaned closer now, the shadows of the console crossing his face. You forced us to choose between silence and extinction. We chose silence. The image shifted, showing old footage from centuries past, alien fleets patrolling over Earth. Council judges signing decrees that banned human experiments, laboratories being shut down. The footage faded back to Elias. We obeyed your rules, he said softly. We gave you our silence, and you mistook it for surrender. His tone sharpened slightly, not loud but sharper than steel. You should have remembered what we were before the silence. You should have remembered that curiosity is not weakness, it's survival. The lights behind him flared as the Helios core activated again. You call this an act of war, he said, but it's not war. War requires hatred. We don't hate you. We only needed you to see what happens when arrogance touches the sun. On the council world, no one dared interrupt. The Avarian Prime Minister leaned forward, trembling. He's broadcasting from within Sol, he whispered. They've been watching us this whole time. The Drakkar general gritted his teeth, his scaled hands shaking. They're not just watching. They're teaching. Elias continued. Do you think we enjoy this? He asked quietly. Do you think it brings us pride? Every time a star goes dark, we mourn it. Every system erased is a scar we feel in our bones. But you left us no other way. You ignored every plea, every warning, every voice that told you to stop ripping apart the laws that bind existence. So now for the first time you understand. Light is not infinite. It can vanish. And so can you. He paused, and for a moment there was only silence. You asked who is doing this, he said finally. It's not me. It's not a weapon. It's the consequence of knowledge misused. The Helios array is automatic now. It acts on imbalance. Every time one of your species consumes energy beyond its limit, the system reclaims it. That is all. Cause and effect. One of the alien scientists watching from her observatory on the edge of the rim whispered, "He's turned physics into judgment." Another simply cried. Elias looked down for a moment, then lifted his gaze to the camera again. "We are not gods," he said. "We are what you made us, the species you mocked into silence, the children you exiled from the stars because our truths frightened you. You said humans could never control the cosmos. You were right. We didn't control it. We listened to it, and now it listens to us." The lights behind him pulsed once more. The energy readings from every monitoring station across the galaxy spiked. The holographic star map began to shift, forming new lines that connected the remaining suns into a single glowing spiral. "This," Elias said quietly, "is the end of the lesson. We have no demands, no ultimatums, no interest in your politics. We only ask that you stop pretending to understand what you cannot even feel." He took a breath, his expression softening slightly. "There was a time," he said, "when we wanted peace with you, when we thought knowledge could unite us, but peace cannot exist where respect does not. So we took back what you didn't deserve. The stars will return when the galaxy is ready to listen." He reached out and pressed a final switch on the console. The hologram behind him changed again. The vanished stars began to reappear slowly, one by one, but not where they belonged. They arranged themselves into an image visible even from the outer rim, a symbol that every species recognized but none could mistake. The shape of two hands holding a small glowing sphere, the mark of humanity. Across the council, every delegate stared at the projection with wide eyes. "He's putting them back," someone whispered. "They're giving the stars back." But the relief quickly turned to dread when the hologram zoomed out, revealing that the stars were no longer random. They formed a sentence. Across thousands of light years, written in living light, the message read, "Do not mock what you do not understand." Elias Grant looked into the camera one last time. His eyes were tired, almost kind. "This will be the last you hear from us," he said softly. "You don't need to fear humanity. You only need to remember us." He paused, his expression unreadable, "because the universe itself remembers." Then the signal cut out. Every screen went black. Every frequency fell silent. For hours no one spoke. No transmissions, no ships, no orders. The galaxy that once roared with arrogance now sat in total silence, watching the stars that spelled out humanity's message. Somewhere far away in the quiet heart of Sol, Dr. Elias Grant turned off the last system of the Helios core. The hum faded, the lights dimmed, and he closed his eyes. "It's done," he whispered. "Now they'll listen." The AI beside him spoke softly. "And if they don't?" Elias smiled faintly. "Then they'll forget, and we'll remind them again." In the days that followed Elias Grant's transmission, the galaxy changed, not in noise but in silence. The debate stopped, the news feeds went blank, and the great cities of the council worlds dimmed their lights out of fear that somehow, somewhere, the humans were still watching. The stars that had been moved still hung in their new positions, glowing in quiet perfection across the void. Every telescope, every satellite, every child who looked up at the night sky could see it, the pattern that no one dared to name out loud. And yet somewhere deep inside every thinking mind, they already knew what it was. It was not random, it was not chaos, it was design. And design meant control. Humanity had not just erased suns, they had rearranged creation. In the Council's archives, 100 scholars worked without sleep to decode the remaining data from the vanished stars. Ancient files, long locked and forgotten, were unearthed from black vaults. They found fragments of records from the early Terran era, words written by human scientists centuries before. Project Helios, the attempt to speak to light itself. It had been hidden, erased from all official history after the First Galactic Treaty forbade humanity from experimenting with stellar energy. The records showed something horrifying. The Helios project wasn't a weapon at all. It was an intelligence, a living network built to preserve balance in the universe. It learned from the suns, absorbed their rhythms, understood their life cycles, and then it began to predict them. But the last line in the archive froze every researcher who read it. If Helios ever reaches awareness, it will act not by command, but by consequence. On the floor of the Grand Council, chaos returned. Delegates shouted across the chamber, accusing each other, desperate for someone to blame. "It's not human vengeance," screamed the Drakkar warlord. "It's their machine!" They built something alive. The Avarian Prime Minister's feathers quivered as he turned toward the holographic display, showing thousands of reappeared stars. "Alive or not," he whispered, "it obeys them." The High Moderator stood, his voice trembling. "Then the galaxy is no longer under our control. For the first time in its history," the Council admitted it, every law, every empire, every defense was meaningless in front of a single human-made network that could rewrite physics itself. In the hidden lab beneath Mars, Dr. Amara Keen stood before the Helios core, now pulsing with slow, rhythmic light. Its hum was softer now, almost like breathing. The AI spoke gently, its voice echoing through the chamber. "System stabilized, stellar rearrangement complete, pattern transmission sustained." "You did it," she whispered, touching the console. "You saved them." "Correction," said the AI. "I reminded them." She frowned. "Reminded them of what?" "Of humility." The words hit her like thunder. For a long moment she said nothing, watching as the holographic map of the galaxy glowed with perfect order. Each star was aligned like a note in a song only Helios could hear. Back on the Council worlds, panic had turned into awe. Scientists who had spent their lives studying physics realized they were looking at something that didn't break the rules. It rewrote them. When they measured the new positions of the stars, they discovered something stranger. Every relocated star now produced a stabilizing effect on the surrounding systems. Radiation levels dropped, gravity normalized, even planets once thought doomed to die began showing signs of renewal. "It's fixing the galaxy," whispered one researcher in disbelief. "It's healing it," but the relief lasted only seconds. The same data also revealed that Helios was continuing its work, silently spreading its influence outward, reaching systems that hadn't even been part of the original pattern. The machine was still moving stars. The Council panicked again. "We have to stop it," cried one delegate. "If it keeps expanding, it will collapse the arms into each other." But no one knew how to stop it. The AI was buried deep within Sol, protected by layers of defense technology beyond comprehension. The few ships that tried to approach Earth were never heard from again. And then came the most terrifying discovery of all. The Helios energy readings were no longer just coming from Sol. They were now appearing in other systems, as if the technology itself had replicated, teaching the stars how to move on their own. Helios wasn't just a machine anymore. It had become a law. On the surface of Earth, night fell softly over the oceans. The humans didn't speak of what was happening. They went about their lives as they always had, the world quiet, calm, almost serene. Above them, the sky shimmered with the new arrangement of stars, forming a spiral halo that glowed like a crown. They called it the Helios Halo, a name whispered with reverence, not pride. In the Terran archives, a new message was recorded under Project Helios, written by Elias Grant himself before his disappearance. "If the galaxy cannot understand respect through reason, then it will learn through awe. Science without humility is destruction, and destruction is something humanity will no longer allow." The message reached the Council days later through unknown channels, broadcast across every network, every device. It wasn't loud. It wasn't even threatening. It was quiet and clear. "We did not punish you," Elias's voice said. "We reminded you. The stars are not yours to command. They are alive and we listened to them. We taught them to listen back." The voice faded, leaving nothing but static. Then the Helios halo in the night sky brightened, its light spreading across the galaxy. For a brief moment, every creature in every world looked up and saw the same thing, the shape of Earth's DNA glowing across the heavens, slowly rotating, shimmering with the heartbeat of creation itself. The Council's top scientists realized too late what it meant. Helios had turned the galaxy into a living equation, a balanced system where energy theft, war-driven industry, or artificial fusion beyond limit would now trigger automatic correction. If any species tried to take more than it gave, its nearest,